These are the times we're living in, right? These are the concerns that we have today. It's unbelievable to think about how much of an impact cybersecurity has on a law firm, has on each one of us individually as well as professionally. So today I'm very excited and happy that you all are joining. We have some amazing stuff coming up. So I'm only going to talk for a few minutes, but we're going to have a real-life hacker come in and go through a few things for us, real time, which I'm really excited about, being a bit of a script kiddie, white hacker myself. So let's jump into this really quickly and talk about what's going on right now across the world, everywhere you are. Tons of breaches, right? Breaches left and right. Records being stolen in every single type of organization you can possibly imagine. It's the largest of largest banking institutions. They are universities, schools, nonprofits. Everyone is being touched by this. Equifax, 160 million people in the US. All of your information is on the dark web. In the UK, here, there's 1 million people that were touched by this breach. This is where we're at today. So, I want to ask you a question. So, hello, porn stars. Yes, this is a little unusual for a legal conference, and I understand that. But I want to try something with you, so indulge me for just a second here. Social media, the internet, talks about each one of us having a porn star name. That porn star name is derived by having figured out your first pet and where you lived when you grew up. So your primary residence, where you grew up. Combine those two, and that's what your porn star name is. So I'm going to ask each one of you to take a few seconds, think about that, and turn to your neighbor sitting next to you and introduce yourself with your porn star name. So what you have just done is divulge personal information about yourself to someone you may not even know, that people typically use to reset passwords, to reset logins. You just gave it away. Tons of surveys on the internet are doing these things right now. It's social engineering. And that's what we have to be worried about and concerned of. Just for the record, my name is Rocky Canyon. Very strange. So moving forward, there's a lot of things happening in this space, right? So not too far away from here, last year, there was a conference on cybersecurity. A bunch of people running into the conference late. There were people outside taking surveys. They asked 3 questions. Give me your name, give me your company, and give me your login and password. Just write it down. Who would do that, right? Well, 30% filled out that form. Shocking, shocking. So how many actually filled that out and put in the right information? All you need is one. All you need is one to corrupt an entire network. So only 30% filled it out. What if we want to get more people to fill this out? So what did they do? Well, they offered a candy bar. So what did the candy bar do? Got you up to 70%. Shocking. I love Flake. It's one of my favorite out there. But would you do that? Does it make sense? We are ultimately the ones that are in charge of our own cybersecurity. So one of the last things that I will bring up is law firm security. I've been talking about this for the last 4 or 5 years with firms across the US and sometimes here. 3 numbers that I want to give you: 97, 225, and 84. So 97%. What is that? That is the number of networks that have been compromised. And this was from an audit of 1,250 different corporations, law firms all together, and they found malware on 97% of those networks. Shocking. So 225, what is that? It's a number of days before the organization even realizes that there's malware on that network. Collecting information, sending it through the firewall to someone actually looking at that, analyzing it. The last one, 84, is the percentage of organizations that actually need a third party to help out, because it's really difficult to determine these types of things. So ultimately, it is us. We are the ones that are in trouble, making trouble, unfortunately. That's one side of it. The second side is what we're going to get into in just a second here. And that's around IoT. So IoT, Internet of Things, is coming along very quickly. All of our devices, light bulbs are now connected to the internet. Those types of things could be problem areas for all of us. So very excited to welcome Tony to the stage, and he's going to go through some hacking for us.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome, and thank you very much for having me along. I'm going to talk about hacking some of these things, hacking the Internet of Things. But first, a little bit about who I am and who we are. So my name's Tony G, and I work for Pentest Partners. We're ethical hackers. So we get paid by people to hack into their networks. And so we do lots and lots of hacking, but in the spare time, what we like to do is we like to hack things like this, a Wi-Fi kettle. Definitely something that every house needs, and lots of other things. But I want to start by talking about the smart home. You know, there's this wonderful idea that we have of the smart home, and where you have all of these different devices that are all connected together, doing different things in your house. And you know, you've got your drive gates open up if you've got a particularly big house. Your garage door opens up if it's smaller, and then your lights turn on, your heating turns on just as you're arriving, and all these really, really cool things. And it just sounds like it's such a fantastic world that we'll live in. In reality, I think it's probably more akin to this. So I thought what I'd do is I'd actually show you how we hack your house and how we can actually hack your house. So what's the first thing that we need to do in order to be able to hack some of these smart gadgets? What's pretty much the unique thing that links them all together? Your Wi-Fi. So firstly, we need to find out where you live, and we need to find out what your Wi-Fi is. So how do we do that? Well, we can do Wi-Fi tracking. So Wi-Fi tracking is really easy to do. If you leave your Wi-Fi turned on, which I wouldn't mind betting all of your Wi-Fi is turned on your phones now, what we can do is we can actually track that, and we can start to geographically locate it using services like wiggle.net. This allows us to find the physical location of a Wi-Fi access point. And so this one just over here, for example, we can see that this one here has got a kettle and also a Sky Wi-Fi network. So if we can find the Sky Wi-Fi, that's likely to be their house, right? And the kettle we know is the Wi-Fi kettle. So we could combine those two to start to hack you. So how do we do that? Well, we hack your kettle, right? But how do we go about hacking your kettle? Well, firstly, let's talk about this kettle. So this is probably the most pointless internet-enabled gadget I can think of. It's a kettle that you can boil from your smartphone, right? It's utterly pointless. I have got one, I have to say. I've even connected mine up to Amazon Echo, which is really tragically sad. So I can come down in the morning and I can say to my Amazon Echo, Alexa, good morning, and then the kettle boils and it tells me the weather and the news, which is really quite sad, especially when you consider that I can't hear the news because the kettle's so loud that it it's rubbish. Anyway, so getting back to this kettle. This is kettle version 1 of the kettle, and this kettle is utterly rubbish. And essentially what you can do is that you can kick the kettle off the home network using some very simple tools. And once you've kicked it off the home network, it creates a default Wi-Fi access point called iKettle. Remember that one that we saw on the Wi-Fi list there? We can connect to that with no password, and then we can ask the kettle for the password. And I thought what I'd do is I'd show you how easily it is to do that. So if my colleagues can just switch over to my screen, which hopefully should be there we go. So it's really, really simple. Once we've kicked it off the network, we just need to connect to it. I'm going to cheat a little bit because it makes it easier for my demos, but essentially we kick it off the network, we then try and connect to it. Now it asks us for a password. Now it's 6 numbers. Who wants to hazard a guess as to what the password is? Everyone gets that. You're all wrong, unfortunately. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's just 6 zeros instead. And conveniently, that is actually in the manual that you can find for the Wi-Fi module. So we've now logged into the kettle. So now we need to know how to connect to the Wi-Fi network. Well, that's easy. The kettle knows it, so we can ask it. So we do kettle AT plus SSID. It tells us the home Wi-Fi network. We can also do AT plus key, and it'll show us the password for the home network. And then we can connect into their home network, and then we're on their network. So if you can just flick back to my presentation. So obviously, we contacted the vendor and said, well, what are you going to do about it? And they said, well, it's a specialist attack. Really? You saw what I did there. And you're going to be really hard-pressed to find someone with one of these kettles. Now, I can kind of understand that a little bit. I don't think it's that they've sold that very few. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it's because, where the kettles live, they live in a kitchen, right? They don't advertise themselves on the street. Except remember, they broadcast that Wi-Fi access point called iKettle. Remember where we look up Wi-Fi access points? Wiggle.net. And there are a few in London. I actually found the owner of that kettle doing a similar presentation. They came up and said that that's my kettle. So I know that it's true, which is quite amusing. So we're on your network. What do we do now? Well, our next step is to perform what's called a port scan. So we can just run some tools across your network to find out what devices you've got on there. This is actually my home network. And you can see I've got a Netgear router. I've got this slim device, which is like a music player. Obviously, some Raspberry Pis. Electric Imp, that's the kettle. Philips lighting, you can see I've got Philips Hue lighting. So we can find these devices. What happens if we happen to find on your network, do you have a smart door lock? A Ring video door lock? Or in fact, sorry, not the Ring door lock, the August Bluetooth door lock. Well, a really interesting thing about the August door lock, when it first came out, this is a door lock for people too lazy to carry keys, right? They can use their phone to unlock the door. And when they first came out, they used Bluetooth to communicate with the phone. When they first came out, the mobile application included a hard-coded key built into the application, which when we combine with just one small piece of information, which the lock broadcasts all of the time, allows us to break into the house. We literally could walk up to the house and just press a button and unlock that door without being the authorized owner. So we've got into the house. But before we walk in, we notice you've got one of these. CCTV, right? Lots of people are investing in CCTV now. They're investing in CCTV to protect their homes, of course. But what they're doing is they're buying networked versions of CCTV devices so that they can connect to it from their smartphone, so they can see someone breaking into the house when they're not at home. Problem is, a lot of them are really rubbish. And I've got one just here. And what we're able to do with it is we're able to compromise it and actually turn it off. And I'm going to show you, if your colleagues will just switch over, how we can actually do that. It's really simple. So there's obviously a web interface for it. Now, the web interface, you can log in with admin and a default password of blank, which is rubbish in itself. But let's assume the end user has had some level of control there. We don't need to actually log in. What we can do is we can actually perform what's called a buffer overflow. That buffer overflow effectively knocks the thing offline, and we can do it really, really easily just by filling this address bar with lots and lots and lots and lots of characters. So I'm just pasting lots and lots and lots of A's in there. And then the system is shut down. So now we've literally just turned off the CCTV. So of course, if you can just flick back to the presentation, we can now walk straight back into the house. How do we do that? Well, the Florian DVR has this buffer overflow in the browser, which just takes seconds to exploit, as you saw. We can do some other cool things with it, like using it as a device that we can then control and target things on the internet. Like there was a large botnet of hacked CCTV cameras that used exactly that to target things on the internet and perform what's called denial of service attacks. But we're not interested in that. We want to gain access to your network. So we've shut down your CCTV now. So now, of course, we can walk in. But hang on a sec, you've got a guard dog. So what are we going to do about your guard dog? How are we going to defeat your guard dog? How do we bypass the guard dog? Well, conveniently, what we noticed on your network is you've gone and bought a smart pet feeder because you're too lazy to look after your pet properly. So we quickly download the app, and we try and connect to the smart pet feeder, but the problem is the account needs a username and password. We can probably work out or guess what your username is, but the password's a bit more challenging. Now, we could use a porn star name like Joe knows, but we don't know whether it's going to be Rocky whatever it was, Rocky Canyon. But what we do know is you've got a dog, right? What do you reckon? Maybe it's called the dog's name? What's the betting that your password to your pet feeder is the name of your dog? So we just type in that, and if we get lucky, we can get in. And now, of course, the house is ours, which is great. So now we can steal whatever we want, but one of the things we might want to steal is, of course, your bike. So how do we get away on your pride and joy? How do we get past your strong security that you've got on your shed lock? Well, let's imagine you've gone and bought one of these. This is a Taplock. This is a lock that you can use to unlock with your fingerprint. You know, maybe you can't be bothered to carry keys, so you just use this lock. And it's pretty cool. You know, you tap it once, and then you press your finger on it, and then my finger doesn't work. There we go. And it unlocks it, which is great. And the thing is that the maker of this product, they make some really, really strong claims. You know, they say that it's unbreakable durability using Zamax 3, which we'll come back to in a bit, but essentially it's used in die-cast toys. And it also has this military-grade AES encryption. How often do we see that on everything, right? Well, that must be secure. It's military-grade, for goodness sake. And it only costs you £80. £80 for a padlock. Really? Are you mad? Why would you spend that much? So how can we start to attack this? Well, the first things that we can do is, you know, break off the padlock. So we could try and cut through. So you see this bit down here? This is designed to prevent a thing called shimming. This is where you put something down the lock and then pop it open. That's designed to prevent that. Unfortunately, that actually weakens the shackle. And so you can just use some bolt cutters and break through it quite quickly. But we don't want to do that. What we want to do is we want to get quite powerful and use blowtorches. And so, really interestingly, that Zamax 3 metal melts at 400 degrees C. 400 degrees C is about the same temperature as an ordinary blowtorch that you would, you know, if you were a plumber, for example, you would use. So you just go to the hardware store and buy yourself a blowtorch, and then your lock falls off, which is quite cool. But the problem is, we're hackers. We haven't really got a blowtorch, and that's a lot of effort. What we want to do is we want to hack the lock in a much more aggressive way. And so what we can do with this padlock is we can totally and utterly own it and unlock any padlock in the world with a really, really simple attack. So there's a lot of code on that, and you don't need to worry about it. But essentially, there's a password that the phone uses to communicate with this padlock to unlock it. That password is made from the MAC address of the device. The MAC address is something which is broadcast all of the time. Whenever Bluetooth is running, it's broadcasting this to the whole world. Well, certainly to the vicinity of the Bluetooth device. And the password is derived from that. So it took us about 45 minutes to create a script that allows us to unlock this padlock and any other padlock in the world in about 2 seconds. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to do that. It is very, very easy. So I've got a tool running here. I've got a little Bluetooth adapter here. I'm just using Kali Linux, and I've got a very simple script. I need to set this into Bluetooth mode. To do that, you just press the button on the bottom twice, and then it goes blue. You need to hold it quite close to the Bluetooth adapter. And then hopefully, it doesn't work. There we go. It's found the lock, and it is going to not take 2 seconds. Oh, Bluetooth turned off. Bear with me 1 sec. You asked me earlier on, do demos sometimes fail? Yeah, it's your fault. I'm blaming you. Let's try again. Oops. Oh, for goodness sake. Never do live demos. Hang on 1 sec. Oh, well, I'm going to give up on that one. But you get the point. I can break it eventually, but obviously not right now. If you can just flick back to my demo, my presentation. So we've hacked your lock, we've stolen your bike, but we're not done there. We want to invade your children's privacy. So I'd like to introduce my friend Kayla down here. I don't know if you can see her just down here. This is a children's doll. This is a doll that your child can have. They can talk with the doll. They can ask it simple questions, and Kayla will give her an answer or give an answer. She uses Bluetooth to communicate to the phone. It provides the app to do the functionality. And of course, being a children's toy, she's not allowed to swear. Except we're hackers, right? We kind of want to make her swear, right? So how do we go about doing that? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually switch over to Kayla and get Kayla to actually tell you how we go about hacking her. So hopefully they're going to enable the mic. And And so it's pretty simple.
This
So she
story
uses
is
the app.
great. I love hearing it over and over. Let me tell you about it. So how did I get hacked? Well, it works in a number of ways. Firstly, because I have no pairing for the Bluetooth connection, so anyone can connect to me. I also have a database of questions a child can ask me, and I will provide a canned answer. I am not allowed to swear, though, and so I have a database of bad words. Both can be modified. I also can look up things from Wikipedia. This can be intercepted and modified. However, the easiest way is to modify this story I'm reading now, and then I can say anything I like, including swear words. What the hell? I was told I was doing the whole presentation.
So she's really creepy as well, I have to say. Yeah. Why someone would buy that for their child, I have no ideas, unless they really don't like them. So in terms of fixing My Friend Kayla, there isn't really a lot that they can do to fix it. They can do a little bit on the Wikipedia side of it, but the reality is, the problem is that they built the device in a very poor way and have not done any kind of testing on it. And actually, a recall is the only thing that's going to save us on this particular device. So just a little bit of advice on some of the things that you can do, some of the things that you can do to kind of protect yourself. Do you really need all of that stuff? And I think that's the first question you should ask when you're looking to buy smart devices, is do you actually need it? A lot of the time, we buy these devices because we want it rather than we actually need it. And a lot of smart devices, they're bought purely and simply because someone wants it. There is no use case for it at all. Like there was a juicer that came out. They're out of business now because clearly no one wanted it. But it was a juicer you could buy. And what it would do is you would buy these packages that you would put in it, which would be squeezed by the juicer and provide you juice at the other end of it, until someone realized you just squeeze the packet and you get the juice yourself. And so it's utterly pointless. The other thing is more practical things for you to do. Certainly change your Wi-Fi password. It's so common now to find default passwords. People just still use the same password that came from their Wi-Fi router, from their ISP. Change it. Change the SSID, the access point name as well, to something else. Those are very easy things to do. Make it generic, but not too generic. Because you don't want it to call your Wi-Fi access point Starbucks Wi-Fi, because otherwise, well, you're going to find your phone's going to get very confused when you walk past a Starbucks. But you could change it to something a little bit more generic that is still a little bit unique. Whenever you get the option to set good passwords or set passwords on anything, set really good passwords. The best way to do that is with a password manager. These things are brilliant. I cannot recommend them enough, and I don't have enough time to talk about them. But there's lots and lots of really good free ones available. One I'd recommend, and I personally use, is from a company called LastPass. It's just brilliant. I really can't recommend it enough, and I'd recommend installing it on your phone because it's gonna allow you to set much stronger passwords on those devices that you use. One thing you could do, especially if you're a little bit more technically minded, is perhaps move some of those devices onto your guest network. So you might not realize it, but on your Wi-Fi router, you may actually have a guest wireless network available to you that you can ask your guests who come to your house to connect to. It means that they can't connect to anything else on your internal network. If you connect your smart devices to that, they also can't connect to any of your internal networks. So if they do get compromised, your internal network, your computers on your internal network are going to be safe because they're not going to be able to access it. And when you look to buy products, research them. Look to buy sensibly. Buy good products. There's lots and lots of really good products out there. Do your research. Google them. I have to say, unfortunately, cheap Chinese devices are usually cheap because they've got vulnerabilities. That thing now, I think that DVR was about 20, 30 pounds, something like that. It's got so many holes, it's shocking. The kettle, on the other hand, was quite expensive. It's quite funny, actually, with this kettle. What was hilarious is they bought the kettle out, and what we realized when we found it is we searched afterwards online for it. And we found that you could buy it directly from China for £35 without the Wi-Fi module. The Wi-Fi module was 50p. So they applied this Wi-Fi module and then charged you £135, which is that's a good money if you can make it. And then the final thing is, yeah, get a normal doll. Yeah. And that's actually it. And it looks like I've finished ahead of schedule, which is pretty good. This is great comment here from Mikko Hipponen. He's a security, I think I'd probably call him an evangelist, really. He works for a company called F-Secure. And his view is, whenever an appliance is described as smart, it's vulnerable. He also says another one, there is no, the S in IoT stands for security. And I think that's pretty true, actually. And that's me done. Thank you.